everyone, it's me again, Kirstie. I hope you're all well. Can you guess which book I'm reading next? So the book I'm reading next is Lilo and Stitch. This story shows the importance of family and having others around you. I will be reading a page and then showing you the pictures for a good visual aid. So this book's good because it shows you all the characters at the front. So we have Jumba, Pleakley, Cobra Bubbles, the Grand Councilwoman, Nanny, David, Lilo and Stitch. So, Lilo and Stitch. Lilo was a bright, bubbly 5-year-old girl who lived in Hawaii with her big sister, Nanny. Once a week, Lilo brought a sandwich to a little fish called Pudge. One day, her visit to Pudge made her late for a dancing lesson. So here we can see Lilo with a sandwich and little Pudge. When she arrived, she was still wet from swimming. She dripped water all over the dance floor, making her classmates slip and slide. So you can see Lilo and all the classmates on the floor with the water. "Stop!" cried the dance instructor. He asked Lilo why she was so late. Lilo started to explain about Pudge, but a pupil called Myrtle interrupted. "You're crazy," she sneered. Furious, Lilo pounced on Myrtle. The instructor had to separate the two girls. So we see the instructor here, Lilo and the other girls. Lilo was sent out of the class, so when Nanny arrived to collect her, Lilo had already gone home. Lilo felt so lonely, none of the other girls understood her. So here we have Nanny looking through the window and Lilo at home with some music. Nanny was nervous. A social worker called Cobra Bubbles had come to the house to decide whether Lilo could stay with Nanny. When he saw the mess in the house, he told Nanny that she had 3 days to prove she could look after Lilo on her own. So here we have Nanny, Lilo and Cobra Bubbles. Meanwhile, in a distant galaxy, an alien scientist called Jumba had built a strange creature called Experiment 626. When 626 destroyed everything he came across, he was sent to prison. But he escaped. The Grand Councilwoman sent Jumba and his partner, Pleakley, to capture 626. So here we can see Experiment 626 in a spaceship. That night, 626's spaceship crash-landed on Earth. The people who found 626 thought he was a dog, so they took him to an animal rescue centre. The next day, Nanny and Lilo came to the rescue centre to find Lilo a pet. Lilo noticed funny little 626 straight away, and when he hugged her, she knew she had to have him. So here we have Nanny and Lilo at the rescue centre, and here Lilo hugging Stitch. Lilo decided to call her new friend Stitch. Nanny thought the creature looked scary and tried to persuade Lilo to choose another pet, but Lilo only wanted Stitch. So here we are, Nanny looking quite afraid of Stitch, but Lilo wants him. Jumba and Pleakley landed on Earth and tracked Stitch to the restaurant where Nanny worked. They lured Stitch to their table with some food, then tried to grab him. Stitch managed to escape, but he caused a big commotion in the restaurant. The owner was so angry that he fired Nanny. So here we have Jumba and Pleakley in the restaurant with Stitch, and then Nanny and her boss. Back at home, Lilo gave Stitch a comfy pillow to sleep on, but he just ripped it to pieces. Then he went to the kitchen and made even more mess. Nanny decided she'd had enough. She told Lilo that Stitch had to go. So here we see Stitch ripping up the pillow, and then Nanny, Lilo and Stitch making a mess. But Lilo begged Nanny to give Stitch another chance. But he's an orphan, like us, Lilo pleaded. And he's part of our family now. Nanny felt sorry for little Stitch and agreed to let him stay. So here we have Nanny, Stitch and Lilo. Stitch found a photo under Lilo's pillow. "Be careful with that," warned Lilo. The picture was the only one she had of her father and mother, so Stitch played with the other things in Lilo's room instead. Most of them ended up destroyed. So we can see Stitch with the family photo, and then Stitch in a room with everything else destroyed. The next day, Cobra Bubbles came to visit again, but Stitch whacked him on the head with a book. Cobra Bubbles told Nanny that if she wanted to keep Lilo, she had to find a new job and get that new dog to behave. So we see Nanny with Stitch and Lilo and Cobra Bubbles. So Nanny went job hunting. While she asked at the local grocer's, Lilo tried to teach Stitch how to behave himself. "Elvis Presley was a model citizen," she explained. "I've made a list of things you can do to be more like him. Number 1 is dancing." But their dance routine knocked over the shopkeeper, so Nanny didn't get the job. So we can see Lilo and Stitch, Stitch dancing with the shopkeeper and Nanny. Discouraged, the two sisters went to the beach. Just then, Nanny's friend David came along. To cheer them up, he suggested they all go surfing. So we can see Nanny, David, Lilo and Stitch all on surfboards. As Nanny, Lilo and Stitch rode a giant wave, Jumba appeared, grabbed Stitch and pulled him under the water. David managed to rescue Stitch, but Cobra Bubbles was watching from the shore. He told Nanny that, as she couldn't care for her sister properly, he would have to find Lilo a new family. So we have Nanny and Lilo, Stitch and Jumba. And then we have Pleakley, Jumba and Stitch all under the water. That night, Lilo studied her family photo and told Stitch all about how she had lost her parents. Stitch knew that he had caused Lilo a lot of trouble, so he decided to leave. So we can see Lilo and Stitch there. And then Stitch is leaving. The next day, Nanny had to go out to a new job David had found her. She told Lilo not to let anyone in while she was gone. Meanwhile, Jumba had found Stitch and chased him back to Lilo's house. Jumba and Stitch fought fiercely, destroying most of the house, then setting it on fire. Terrified, Lilo phoned Cobra Bubbles. So we have Jumba and Stitch, and then Lilo on the phone to Cobra Bubbles. When Nanny got home, the fire had been put out by the fire brigade, but the house was in ruins. Nanny pleaded with Cobra Bubbles to let her keep Lilo, but he refused. But as he got ready to drive off with Lilo, she escaped and ran into the forest, followed by Stitch, who wanted to say sorry to his friend. So we've got Cobra Bubbles, Nanny and Lilo, and then Stitch in the forest. Stitch caught up with Lilo and gave her the precious family photo he had rescued from the fire. Then he changed himself back into his alien shape. Lilo realised that Stitch wasn't a dog after all. "You've ruined everything," she cried. So we can see Lilo and then Stitch in his alien form. Just then, an alien called Captain Gantu appeared. He had been sent by the Grand Councilwoman to take over Jumba and Pleakley's failed mission. He captured Lilo and Stitch and took them to his spaceship, but Stitch escaped. So here we can see Captain Gantu, Lilo and Stitch, and then Nanny, and then the spaceship, and Stitch who was escaped. Stitch persuaded Jumba and Pleakley to help him rescue Lilo. They took off in Jumba's spaceship. They caught up with Gantu and attacked. After a fierce fight, Gantu was defeated and Lilo was free. Jumba's ship splashed down in the ocean near David, who was out surfing. So we can see the spaceships. Then we can see the crashed spaceship with David in the ocean. But their troubles weren't over yet. The Grand Councilwoman arrived to take Stitch home. "But this is my family now," Stitch said, pointing to Lilo and Nanny. Everyone was moved by the love Stitch and the two girls had for each other. The Grand Councilwoman decided to let Stitch stay on Earth, and Cobra Bubbles said Lilo could live with Nanny. Jumba and Pleakley became part of Lilo's family too. Lilo was thrilled. With Stitch around, she knew she would never be lonely again. So here we can see all the characters on the sand. And the end. I hope you enjoyed Lilo and Stitch. I will be posting some more soon. Thanks for listening.